Every major industry was once a growth industry, but some that are now riding a wave of growth enthusiasm are very much in the shadow of decline. Others that are thrown off as a seasoned growth industry have actually stopped growing. In every case, a reason war is threatened, slowed, or stopped in is not because the market is saturated. It is because there has been a failure of management. Failure is at the top. Executives respon responsible for it, in the last analysis, are those for deal with broad aims and policies. The railroads did didn't stop growing because the need for passenger and freight transportation declined, but grew. The railroads are in trouble today not because that need was failed by others, cars, trucks, airplanes, and even telephones, but because it was not filled by the railroads themselves. They let other states' customers away from them because they assumed themselves of to be in the railroad business rather than in the transportation business. The reason they defined their industry incorrectly was that they were railroads oriented instead of transportation oriented. They were product oriented instead of customer oriented. Hollywood barely escaped being totally ravished by television. Actually, all the established film companies went through drastic reorganization, some simply disparate. All of them got into trouble not because of TV's inroads, but because of their own myopia. As with the railroads, Hollywood defined its business incorrectly. It thought it was in the movies business when it was actually in the entertainment business. Movies played as specific limited product with produced features contentment that from the beginning led the producers to view TV as a threat. Hollywood scorned and rejected TV when it should have welcomed it as an opportunity to expand the entertainment business. Today, TV is a bigger business than the old narrowly defined movie business ever was. At Hollywood, being customer-oriented rather than product-oriented, would it have gone through the fiscal purgatory that it did? But what ultimately saved Hollywood and entertainment for its resurrections was a wave of new young writers, producers, and directors whose previous success in television had decimated the old movie companies and toppled the big movie moguls. There are other, less obvious examples of industries that have been and are now endangering their futures by improperly defining their purpose. I shall discuss some of them in detail later and analyze the kind and of policies that lead to trouble. Right now, It may help to show what thoroughly customer-oriented management can do to keep a growth industry growing even after the obvious opportunities have been exhausted. And here there are two examples that have been around of a long time. There are nylon and glass, specifically to point of numbers and company and Corning Glasses works. Both companies have great technical competence. Their product orientation is unquestioned, but his alone does not explain their success. After all, who was more pridefully product-oriented and product-conscious than the Australian New England textile companies that have been so thoroughly massacred? The DuPonts of the Cornings have succeeded not primarily because of their product of the research orientation, but because they have been thoroughly customer-oriented also. It's a constant watchfulness for opportunities to apply their technical know-how to the creation of customer satisfying use that accounts for their prodigious output of successful and new products. We thought a very sophisticated on the customer most of their new products might have been wrong, their sales methods useless. Aluminium has also continued to be a growth industry, thanks to the effort of the two wartime great companies that deliberately set about inverting new customer setting uses. Without Kaiser Aluminum and Chemical Corporation and Reynolds Metals Company, the total demand for aluminum today would be vastly less. Some may argue that it is foolish to set the real world of Against Aluminum or the movies of Against Glasses. Are not aluminum and glass naturally so versatile that the industries are bound to have more growth opportunities than the railroads and the movies? This view commits precisely the error I have been talking about. It defines an industry or product or a cluster of know-how so narrowly as to guarantee its premature sentences. When we mention relevance, we should make sure we mean transportation. As transporters, the railroads still have a good chance for very considerable growth. They are not limited to the railroad business as such. So, in my opinion, rail transportation is potentially a much stronger transportation medium than is generally believed. What the railroad lacks isn't opportunities, but some of the managerial imaginatives and the audacity that made them great. Even an amateur like Jack Berzon can see what is lacking when he says, "I grew to see the most advanced physical and social organization of the last century go down shabby, disgraced for lack of the same comprehensive measure that built it up. The will of the companies to survive and to satisfy the public by investors and scale. It's impossible to mention a single major industry that did not uh, at one time qualify the emerging application of growth industry. In each case, the industry assumed strength lay in the apparently unchallenged superiority of its product. There appeared to be no effective substitute for it. It was itself a runaway substitute for the product it so triumphantly replaced. Yet one after another of these celebrated companies' industry has come under a shadow. Let us look briefly at a few more of them, this time talking examples that have so far received a little less attention. This was once a growth industry with lavish prospects. In an age of wool garments, imagine being finally able to get them clean safely and easily. The boom was on, yet here we are 30 years after the boom has started and the industry is in trouble. Whereas the competition come from? From a better way of cleaning? No, it has come from synthetic fibers and chemical additives that have cut the need for dry cleaning. But this is only the beginning. Look in the wings and ready to make chemical dry cleaning totally obsolete is that powerful magician ultrasonics. This is another one of those supposedly no substitute products that has been entered on a pedestal of invisible growth. When the incandescent lamp came along, kerosene lights were finished. Later, the water wheel and the steam engine were acute to ribbons by the flexibility, reliability, simplicity, and just plain easy availability of electric motors. The prospect of electric-utilities continues to wax extravagant as home is converted into a museum of electric gadgetry. How can anybody miss by investing in utilities with no competition? Nothing but growth ahead. But a second look is not quite so comforting. A score of non-utility companies are well advanced toward developing a powerful chemical fuel cell which could sit in some enclosed of every home silently taking off electric power. The electric lines that vulgarize so many neighborhoods will be eliminated. The electric lines that vulgarize so many neighborhoods will be eliminated, so would the endless demolition of street and services interruption during storms. Also, the origin is solar energy, again pioneered by not non-athletic companies. Who says that the utilities have no competition? There may be natural monopolies. No, but tomorrow there may be natural death. To avoid this prospect, right, will have to develop fuel cells, solar energy, and other power sources. To survive, they themselves will have to exploit the obsolescence of what now produce their livelihood. Many people find it hard to realize that there either was a thriving establishment known as the corner store, the supermarket to over with a powerful effectiveness. Yet the big food chains of the 1940s narrowly escaped being completely wiped out by the aggressive expansion of independent supermarkets. The first genuine supermarket was opened in 1940 in Jamaica, Long Island. By 1943, supermarkets were thriving in California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere. Yet the establishment chains purposely ignored the van. What they chose to notice then, it was with such derisive description as shapy, Rosenbergy, Quark and Barrel storekeeping, and unethical opportunities. The executive of one big chain announced at the time that he who found it hard to believe that people will drive for miles to shop for food and sacrifice the personal service chains are perfect and to which is accustomed. As late as 1946, the National Wholesale Grocers Convention and the New Jersey Retail Grocers Association said there was nothing to fear. They said that the supers never appeal to the price barrier limited the size of market they had to draw from miles around. When imitators came, there would be wholesale liquidation as volume fell. The high sales of the supers were said to be partly due to their novelty. People wanted convenient neighborhood grocers if the neighborhood store would cooperate with their supplier, pay attention to their costs, and improve their service. They would be able to weather the competition until it blew over. It never blew over. The chains described that survival required going into the supermarket business. This meant the wholesale destruction of warehouse investments in corner store assets and in established distribution and merchandising methods. The companies, with the courage of their conviction, resolutely stuck to the corner store philosophy. They kept their pride but lost their shirt. But memories are short. For example, it's hard for people who today confidently hail the twin messiahs of electronics and chemical to see how things could possibly go wrong with their galloping industries. They probably also cannot see how a reasonably sensible business person could have been as myopic as the famous Boston millionaire who early in the 20th century unintentionally sentenced his heirs to poverty by stipulating that his entire estate be forever invested exclusively in electric streetcar securities. His posthumous declaration while away big demand for efficient urban transportation is no consolation to his heirs who sustain a life by pumping gasoline at automobile filling station.